A broke waitress serving coffee on Christmas Eve did the impossible. She made the most feared cartel leader in Mexico feel like a man, not a monster. The child he swore to protect now calls her family, and for the first time in a decade, he has something to lose that isn't money, territory, or power. His name was Elias. For 10 years, he built an empire of fear from the mountains of Sinaloa, a ghost who controlled billions yet trusted no one. On that Christmas Eve, surrounded by silent guards in a safe house, he faced a truth more terrifying than any rival: his own emptiness. But how does a single smile from a stranger shatter a decade of hardened isolation? And what happens when the most dangerous man in the country is offered kindness with no price tag? Elias was not born a king. He was forged in the arid soil of Badiraguado, Sinaloa, where boys learn two trades, farming or fighting. He chose the latter with a cold precision that left bodies in the hills and a legend growing in his wake. By 25, he had eliminated his uncle, the previous plaza boss. By 30, he controlled the key smuggling route into Arizona, a corridor known as the Throat, through which 40% of the cartel's product flowed. His word was law, enforced by a private army of sicarios who knew his signature method. A single shot to the forehead, no mess, no message beyond absolute finality. But power in the cartel is a prison of your own design. Elias lived in a series of fortified safe houses, his movements choreographed like a military operation. He ate food tasted by others. He slept in a different room each night. His only consistent human contact was with his lieutenant, Mateo, a man whose loyalty had been proven in blood a dozen times over, and his 7-year-old daughter, Sofia. She was his one vulnerability, a secret kept even from most of his own men. Her mother, a woman from Culiacan, had disappeared 3 years prior, a casualty of the silent war. Sofia now lived under a false name with a caretaker in a nondescript house in Mazatlan, her existence Elias's sole tether to something resembling love. On the other side of the city was Anna. At 24, her life was measured in pesos per hour. She worked the night shift at a dimly lit truck stop diner off the highway, a place frequented by weary drivers and shadowy figures passing through. Her uniform was stained with grease, her feet ached, and the tips were never enough. She shared a single room in a crumbling boarding house with her younger brother, Miguel, who was battling leukemia. Her entire world had shrunk to the cost of his medication, the fear of the next hospital bill, and the relentless clock of her shift. Her dream of becoming a teacher had been buried under medical debt. Her smile, once easy, was now a rare currency she could scarcely afford to spend. The collision course began not with a bang, but with a whisper. A rival faction within the cartel, led by an ambitious newcomer known as El Escorpión, began to question Elias's focus. Rumors spread that his daughter had made him soft, that his obsession with securing a future for her was diverting resources from the war. El Escorpión wanted control of the Throat, and he saw Elias's hidden heart as a crack in the armor. He planted a mole within the security detail of Sofia's safe house. The mission was not to harm the girl, but to gather proof of her existence and location, leverage to force Elias to step aside. Elias, sensing the shifting winds, decided to move Sofia. The plan was to extract her on Christmas Eve, the one night the cartel's watchfulness traditionally eased when even sicarios thought of home. He would bring her to a new, more remote compound in the Sierra Madre. He arrived at the Mazatlan safe house under cover of darkness, a ghost in a black SUV. But as he embraced his daughter, his radio crackled. The mole had acted. El Escorpion's men were inbound, tipped off to the movement. The planned route was compromised. Elias had minutes, not hours. He made a desperate, split-second decision. They would go to ground at the last place anyone would look, a prepaid, anonymous room in a motel adjacent to the very highway truck stop where Anna worked. It was a place of transience and noise, beneath the notice of cartel scouts. With Sofia hidden in the backseat under a blanket, Elias and Mateo drove not into the mountains, but into the glaring neon of the service strip. Meanwhile, Anna's night was unraveling. She had just received a call from the hospital. Miguel's latest treatment had failed. A new experimental therapy was available, but the cost was astronomical, more than she could earn in 5 years. The head waiter, seeing her distress, had sent her on her break early. She stood outside the diner's back door in the chill night air, clutching her cheap phone, the weight of the impossible number on the screen crushing her. She was crying, alone in the dim glow of a security light, utterly defeated. Elias saw her from the shadows of the motel parking lot. He was positioning a lookout when the sound of a stifled sob caught his ear. He watched as a young woman in a waitress uniform, her shoulders shaking, tried and failed to compose herself. It was a raw, private moment of despair he recognized intimately. For a decade, he had administered fear. Here was someone drowning in it. And in that fleeting second, he wasn't a cartel leader. He was just a man witnessing another human being break. He turned away, his mind on tactical positions and escape routes. But Sophia, peeking from the motel room curtain, had also seen. The little girl, wise beyond her years, pointed and said to Mateo, "That lady is sad, it's Christmas. Can we help her?" Mateo hushed her gently. Elias heard it. He entered the room, his face a mask of stone. "We are not here to help strangers," he said, his voice low. "We are here to stay alive." An hour later, the immediate threat had not materialized. The tension was a coiled spring in the room. Sophia was hungry, and the only food was from the adjoining diner. Elias, against every instinct, decided to go himself. Sending a sicario would draw attention. A man getting takeout would not. He pulled a baseball cap low over his eyes and walked across the parking lot. The bell on the diner door jingled. Anna, having forced her smile back into place, looked up from wiping a counter. "Table for one?" she asked, her voice carrying the faint tremor of recent tears. Elias shook his head, not meeting her eyes. 2 orders of chilaquiles to go. As she rang up the order, she made small talk, a forced habit of the job. "Quiet night. You spending Christmas with family?" The question, so innocuous, felt like a knife twist. Elias grunted a non-answer. When she handed him the bag, their fingers brushed. She looked up at him, then really looked past the shadow of the cap. She saw the tension in his jaw, the hollowed exhaustion in his eyes that mirrored her own. And in a moment of pure, unscripted empathy, she gave him a small, genuine smile. It wasn't the bright customer service smile. It was a tired, shared look that said, "I see your hard night too, me also." For Elias, it was an electric shock to a deadened nerve. It held no fear, no calculation, no desire for anything. It was simply human connection, offered freely in a world where everything had a price. He stood frozen for a second too long, clutching the warm paper bag. He managed a stiff nod, turned, and left without a word. Back in the motel room, he handed the food to Mateo, his mind racing. That smile replayed in his head, disarming him more effectively than any ambush. It was a pinpoint of light in a lifetime of darkness. He stood at the window watching the diner. He saw Anna return to her station, saw her shoulders slump the moment she thought no one was looking. A sudden, illogical resolve hardened within him. He turned to Mateo. "I want a name, the waitress, before sunrise." But as Mateo moved to the phone, Elias's own phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. It contained a single, grainy photo. Sophia, taken through a long lens that very afternoon, playing in the courtyard of the Mazatlan safe house. Below it, a message. "A trade, Elias, the route for the girl. You have until dawn to decide." The cliffhanger was no longer just about a smile. It was about an impossible choice, and the stranger in the diner was now, unwittingly, at the center of a war. The photo on his screen wasn't just a threat. It was a masterpiece of betrayal. Elias recognized the angle. It was taken from the upstairs guest room of the Mazatlan safe house, a room used only by his inner circle. The mole wasn't just in the security detail, he was in the family. The clock was ticking towards dawn, but Elias's first move wasn't toward negotiation or surrender. It was toward the diner. He had to know if the waitress was part of the trap, or if her smile was the only real thing he'd seen in years. Mateo's investigation was swift and silent. Within an hour, he had a dossier. Ana Maria Flores, 24, born in a poor neighborhood of Mazatlan, parents deceased. sole guardian to her 16-year-old brother Miguel undergoing treatment for acute lymphoblastic leukemia at the public hospital. Her debts were staggering. Her life was a flowchart of despair. Work, hospital, beg for loan extensions, repeat. There were no suspicious contacts, no unexplained deposits. Just the grinding math of poverty. She was, as far as Mateo could tell, exactly what she appeared to be, a woman breaking under a weight that would crush most people. When he presented this to Elias, the boss stared at the photo of Anna, her face tired but kind, and then at the photo of his daughter. Two children, two battles for survival. The parallel was a punch to his gut. Elias made two decisions simultaneously. The first was strategic. He replied to El Escorpion's number. "The route is yours. Send coordinates for the exchange at 5 a.m. It was a lie, of course. Giving up the throat was a death sentence delivered in installments. But the message would buy a few hours of calm, making El Escorpion confident, maybe careless. The second decision was inexplicable, even to himself. He told Mateo to go to the hospital, to pay Miguel Flores's medical debt in full, anonymously, and to secure him a place in a private clinic for the experimental therapy. The amount was a rounding error in his criminal ledger, less than a single shipment was worth. "Use the Swiss account, the clean one," Elias instructed, his voice devoid of emotion. "Leave no trace back to us." Mateo hesitated. "Boss, with respect, this is a distraction, a risk." "Just do it," Elias said, his eyes still on Anna's file. "Consider it an operational expense." While Mateo carried out this bizarre mercy mission, Elias executed the cold calculus of war. He gathered his three most trusted remaining captains via encrypted call. He told them of the ultimatum, but not of his countermanding order to help Anna. He laid out a plan not of defense, but of annihilation. The proposed exchange point would be a trap within a trap. Elias would appear to come alone to hand over the route's codes. But his men would already be positioned around El Escorpion's own primary stash house, ready to ignite a mountain of product worth $50 million. The message would be catastrophic. "You can try to take my family, but I will burn your future to the ground." Back at the diner, Anna's world was quietly transforming. In the pre-dawn gloom, as she counted her meager tips, her phone chimed. It was an alert from the hospital billing department. Her balance was zero. A second message followed from the administrator, stating that an anonymous donor had not only cleared her debt but had fully funded Miguel's transfer and treatment at the specialized oncology center. She read it once, twice, a dozen times, tears blurring the screen. She called the hospital, demanding confirmation, fearing a cruel mistake. It was real. She slid down against the dirty wall of the diner's kitchen, sobbing with a relief so profound it felt like pain. She had no idea who or why. She whispered a prayer of thanks to a God she thought had forgotten her. Elias watched this unfold from a live audio feed. Mateo had planted a tiny advanced bug in the diner's kitchen during the pre-dawn hours. They heard Anna's confused, joyful call, her tearful gratitude. Elias listened, his expression unreadable. He had bought a life for pocket change. The power of it was more intoxicating than any drug deal. This was a different kind of control, not to destroy, but to deliver from destruction. For a man who defined his worth by the fear he inspired, it was a disorienting new currency. But the cartel world permits no sentimentality. As dawn's first light bled over the highway, the mole made his move. Sophia's caretaker in Mazatlan, a woman named Rosa who had been with the family for years, was found bound and gagged in a closet. Sophia was gone. The message this time was a voicemail on Elias's phone, a child's frightened whimper, then El Escorpion's voice, slick with triumph. "A change of plans, hermano. No trade. You will publicly renounce your authority on the Plaza radio channel at 8 a.m., then you will wait for instructions on where to find your daughter's body. If you deviate, if you try to be clever, we send her back to you in pieces." The rage that consumed Elias was a silent, nuclear winter. He smashed the phone against the motel wall. Mateo and the other guards stood frozen, witnessing the transformation of a strategic mind into pure predatory instinct. Every assumption was wrong. This wasn't a power grab. It was a vendetta designed to inflict maximum psychological torture before the kill. El Escorpion didn't want the root. He wanted to break Elias's soul in front of the entire organization. Elias's counterorder was issued in a whisper that carried the force of a scream. Scorp the secondary plan. Burn everything he has. Every warehouse, every car, every mistress's apartment. I don't care about the money. I want his world on fire by 7 a.m. He then turned to Mateo. The waitress, bring her to me. Now. Mateo blanched. Boss, she is not involved. Bringing her into this. She is the only person who has looked at me without fear in a decade, Elias interrupted, his voice cracking. I need to see that again. Before I become the monster he wants me to be, before I lose her too. The her was ambiguous. Did he mean Sophia or the memory of the smile? In that moment, perhaps even Elias didn't know. Anna was cleaning tables when two severe-looking men in dark jackets entered the empty diner. The cook had already left. One man locked the front door and flipped the sign to closed. The other, Mateo, approached her. Senorita Flores, you need to come with us. Do not be afraid, you are not in trouble. Anna's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it, she thought. The miracle had been a fraud, a setup for something terrible. Who are you? What do you want? Mateo's eyes were weary. The man who paid your brother's debts wishes to speak with you. That is all you need to know. Trembling, Anna was led not to a car, but across the parking lot to the shabby motel room. When the door opened, she saw him. The man from last night, the one with the tired eyes. But now, the cap was off. He stood in the center of the room, surrounded by electronic equipment and weapons, and the air around him vibrated with a terrifying energy. This was no tired traveler. This was something else entirely. Leave us, Elias said to Mateo. The door closed, leaving Anna alone with him. She backed against the wall, her eyes wide. Please, I don't have anything, the money, if it was a mistake. Elias took a step forward, then stopped, seeing the terror he invoked. He did something then that he had not done in 20 years. He sat down on the edge of the bed, making himself smaller, less threatening. The money was not a mistake, Anna, look at me. She forced herself to meet his gaze. Why? She breathed. Why would you do that? Elias searched for an answer that wouldn't get her killed. Because you were kind to a stranger on a hard night, and I have the means to fix what is broken in your life. He paused, the next words feeling like glass in his throat. But now I need you to look at me again, not as a benefactor, just as a man, and tell me what you see. Anna, her initial panic subsiding into a bewildered courage, studied his face. She saw the exhaustion, yes, but beneath it, a grief so deep it seemed to swallow the light. She saw the tension of a creature backed into a corner. She did not see a monster. She saw a father, she realized with a sudden, shocking clarity. A father who was terrified. Her own struggle had honed her ability to recognize despair in all its forms. Her voice was soft but steady. I see someone who is about to lose something they love forever, and it is breaking you. It was the most perceptive thing anyone had ever said to him. Elias felt the stone facade he'd built over a lifetime shatter. His head dropped into his hands. A single, raw sob escaped him, a sound so foreign it shocked them both. In that moment, the feared cartel leader was gone. In his place was just Elias, a man about to lose his child. Anna did not run. Driven by the same empathy that had made her smile at a stranger, she took a tentative step forward. She didn't touch him. She simply sat in the chair opposite him, a silent witness to his unraveling. Is it your daughter? She asked gently. He nodded, unable to speak. Then you have to fight for her, Anna said, her own brother's face in her mind. You do whatever you have to do. You don't let go. Her words, simple and fierce, acted like a defibrillator on his spirit. He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed but clear. The strategic mind, momentarily offline, rebooted with a new, desperate clarity. He had been playing a cartel game, but this was no longer about territory. This was a rescue mission, and he had just found an unlikely ally who understood the cost of a life. He stood up, the vulnerability gone, replaced by a frightening focus. You are right, I have to fight, but to do that I need you to do something impossible. He grabbed a notepad and scribbled an address, a phone number. This is where my daughter is likely being held. This phone connects to a man inside the police who is mine. I need you to go to him. Tell him Elias says the eagle has fallen. He will give you a file. Then you will bring that file to a location I will give you later. Anna stared at the paper as if it were a live snake. Me? Why me? They are watching you, not some waitress. I can move, you cannot. He was right. His men were compromised, their faces known. Anna was a ghost, invisible to the world he moved in. This file, Elias continued, contains everything on El Escorpion. His real name, his family, his hidden accounts. It is my insurance policy. If I fail this morning, you take that file to the Plaza radio. You broadcast it to every rival, every soldier. You burn him from the inside out. You make sure he pays. He was handing her the keys to a war, trusting a woman he'd known for less than 12 hours with the only weapon he had left. Anna understood the magnitude. She also understood this was how she could repay the miracle for Miguel, by helping to save another child. She took the paper, her hand steady now. Okay. As Anna slipped out the motel back door, instructed to take a public bus and act normal, Elias prepared for his public performance. At 8 a.m., as ordered, he keyed the open radio channel used by every cartel member in the region. His voice, when it came through, was flat defeated. This is Elias. I renounce my authority. The plaza is open. I am retiring. The words sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld. To many, it sounded like surrender. But to the few listening for it, there was a subtle, deliberate pause before the word retiring, a prearranged signal. The signal meant the hunt is on. While El Escorpion's men celebrated, Elias's loyalists, who had been awaiting that exact phrase, launched the coordinated arson attacks. Across 3 cities, properties linked to El Escorpion began to explode into flame. The distraction was catastrophic and total. At that same moment, Ana Flores, the broke waitress, walked into a small, unmarked police substation, her heart in her throat, holding a piece of paper that could get her killed, ready to say words she didn't understand to a man she'd never met. The most dangerous game had begun, and she was now a crucial player. Her next move would determine whether a little girl lived or died, and whether the cartel leader who saved her brother would become a legend or a corpse. The police substation was a tomb of fluorescent light and stale coffee. The officer at the front desk, a man with bored eyes, didn't look up as Anna entered. Her rehearsed words, "The eagle has fallen," felt like ash in her mouth. But when she whispered them, his bored demeanor vanished. He stood, locked the front door, and led her to a back room without a word. This wasn't a simple handoff. She was walking into the nerve center of a double-cross that went far deeper than a cartel rivalry. The back room was not an office. It was a tactical operations cell. Maps of the city and the Sierra Madre foothills covered the walls, dotted with pins. A bank of monitors showed live feeds from traffic cameras. The man who turned to face her was not a low-level corrupt cop. He was Captain Raul Vega of the state police's organized crime division, and he was smiling. "Señorita Flores, we've been hopping Elias would send you," Vega said, gesturing to a chair. Anna remained standing, clutching her bag. "You know who I am." "We know everything about you," Vega replied smoothly. "Your brother's condition, your debts, your shift schedule at the diner. We've been monitoring Elias's communications for months. The bug in the diner kitchen, hours. We heard his entire breakdown. We heard him give you this task." Anna's blood ran cold. Elias's insurance policy was a trapdoor leading straight to the police. "You're not his man," she breathed. "No," Vega agreed. "I am the man who is going to use Elias to dismantle El Escorpion's network and then arrest Elias when he's exhausted and alone. A 2-for-1 special." Explained with chilling clarity. The state government, under intense U.S. pressure, needed a major cartel takedown. El Escorpion's rise had been too violent, too public. But Captain Vega didn't just want arrests, he wanted permanent eradication. He had infiltrated both organizations, feeding information to each side to stoke the war. The photo of Sofia, leaked by Vega's agent to force Elias's hand. The goal was to let the two beasts tear each other apart, then mop up the survivors. Anna and the file she was supposed to retrieve were now pieces in Vega's endgame. "You will take the file we give you," Vega instructed, handing her a thick envelope. "But this file doesn't just contain El Escorpion's secrets. It has a tracking chip and a silent audio transmitter embedded in the binding. You will lead us directly to Elias's most secret stronghold, the place he will retreat to after today, which we have never been able to locate. In return, your brother receives not just treatment, but citizenship papers for your family in Canada. A clean start." Anna felt the room tilt. She was no longer a courier, she was bait in a police sting. If she refused, Miguel lost his chance and she'd likely be arrested as an accomplice. If she complied, she would betray the man who, however monstrous his life, had saved her brother and trusted her with his daughter's fate. She thought of Elias's sob, the sound of a breaking father. She took the envelope. It felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Meanwhile, the cartel war had erupted into the open. Elias's arson attacks had been a spectacular diversion, but El Escorpion was not a fool. He had anticipated treachery. As Elias and Mateo, with a hand-picked team of 4 loyalists, moved toward the suspected holding location, a remote hunting lodge in the foothills, they drove into an ambush. The road was blocked by a burnt-out truck. Gunfire erupted from the tree line, not from ahead but from behind. They were surrounded. The mole had transmitted their route in real time. The firefight was short, brutal, and costly. 2 of Elias's men died in the initial volley. Mateo took a round to the leg. Using smoke grenades and superior discipline, Elias managed to extract his wounded lieutenant and the remaining soldier, retreating into the thick forest on foot. They were now hunted on foot, with the clock ticking toward an unknown deadline for Sofia. Elias's radio crackled with El Escorpion's taunting voice. "You burn my warehouses, I bleed your men. Your daughter is counting the minutes, Elias. She is asking for you." Cornered in a shallow cave, Mateo bleeding heavily, Elias faced the abyss. His plan had failed. His strength was evaporating. He keyed his private radio, a last desperate hope. "Anna, the package, do you have it?" There was a long static hiss, then her voice, strained but clear. "I have it, but the meeting point is compromised. They're waiting for you there." Elias closed his eyes. Of course it was. "Is the file real?" he asked. Another pause. He could almost hear her wrestling with the truth. "It will burn him," she said carefully, each word chosen. "But you can't come to me. They are listening. They, not he asterisk." The plural confirmed Elias's darkest suspicion. A third player was on the board, the police. In that moment, a new plan, desperate and audacious, formed in his mind. It hinged entirely on the waitress's courage and his ability to sell one more performance. "Anna, listen carefully. Go to the secondary location, the old lighthouse on the southern point. Be there in 90 minutes. Broadcast the contents of the file on the channel I give you exactly at noon, not a minute sooner or later. Do you understand?" "I understand," she said, and the line went dead. Elias turned to his bleeding friend. "Mateo, I need you to do one more thing for me. I need you to surrender." Mateo stared at him, pale from blood loss. "Boss." "To the police. You walk out of these woods with your hands up. You tell Captain Vega you have critical intelligence on El Escorpion's main cocaine shipment, arriving at the port tonight. You offer it in exchange for medical treatment and witness protection. It will be a lie, but he will bite. It will pull his men away from the lighthouse, away from Anna. It will make him think I am broken and scrambling." Mateo understood. It was a suicide mission. Vega would interrogate him brutally, and when the lie was discovered, Mateo would be killed. He gripped Elias's arm. "For Sofia," he whispered. Elias nodded, a world of gratitude and grief in that single gesture. "For my daughter." As Mateo limped out toward the road to draw the police's eye, Elias and his last soldier began a punishing cross-country trek toward the coast. His body screamed in protest, but his mind was clearer than ever. He was no longer fighting for his empire. He was fighting for 2 things, his daughter and the woman who had shown him a sliver of light. He was fighting to be worthy of that smile. Anna, carrying the treacherous file, made her way to the abandoned lighthouse. The location was perfect, isolated with a clear, high vantage point. As she climbed the rusting stairs, her phone buzzed. It was the private clinic. Miguel's first round of the new therapy had begun. He was responding well. The news was a burst of strength. She reached the top, the vast ocean spread before her. She opened the file as much to see what she was broadcasting as to prepare, and that's when she saw it. Nestled among the bank accounts and property deeds was a photograph that stopped her heart. It was El Escorpion, but not in a tactical vest. He was in a garden, laughing, with his arm around a young woman. The woman was Rosa, Sophia's caretaker, the woman who had been found bound and gagged. The kidnapping wasn't just a hostile takeover, it was a family affair. El Escorpion was Rosa's brother. The mole wasn't just in the house, she was the house. Sophia hadn't been taken in a violent raid. She had been handed over by the woman she called Tia. The psychological cruelty of it was bottomless. Anna felt a surge of fury so pure it burned away her fear. Elias had to know. At 11:55, she set up the small radio transmitter Elias had described, linking it to the file's digital records. She plugged in the coordinates for the cartel's open channel. Her finger hovered over the transmit button, but instead of sending the entire file, she did something else. She typed a quick coded message, prepending it to the data stream. It read, "The keeper is the sister. Lighthouse compromised. Find the garden." She prayed Elias would be monitoring and would understand. At exactly noon, she hit transmit. A torrent of encrypted data, El Escorpion's entire financial life, flooded the airwaves. Across Sinaloa, cartel members' phones and radios lit up with the information. Chaos would follow as every rival and opportunist descended on his assets. The signal was also a homing beacon. Within minutes, Anna saw vehicles speeding along the coastal road toward her, not police cars, SUVs with blacked-out windows. El Escorpion's men. Vega's police were conspicuously absent, likely drawn north by Mateo's false tip. She was alone, and she had just declared war on the second most dangerous man in Mexico. As the SUVs skidded to a halt at the base of the lighthouse, Anna did the only thing she could think of. She grabbed the heavy file and hurled it over the railing, watching it plunge into the churning sea below, taking the tracking device with it. Then she ran, not down, but up, onto the exterior maintenance ladder that led to the lighthouse lamp itself. Elias, hearing the broadcast from a stolen fisherman's truck 10 miles away, decoded Anna's message instantly. "The keeper is the sister, Rosa." The betrayal was so intimate it was almost beautiful in its ruthlessness. "Find the garden," the photo in the file, El Escorpion's garden. He knew that place. It was at his rival's private villa near the Botanical Gardens, a place he'd considered attacking once but deemed too fortified. That's where Sophia would be. Not in a damp hideout, but in a place of sentimental value. He slammed his fist on the dashboard. "Turn around, head to the gardens now." But as he changed course, his radio buzzed with a new voice. It was Captain Vega, patched through on a cleared frequency. "Elias, we have your lieutenant. He's told us everything. Your daughter is at the lighthouse with the waitress. El Escorpion's men are there now. It's over. Surrender and I can promise you a trial. Maybe even see your daughter again one day." It was a masterful lie designed to send him into a panic, rushing toward the obvious trap at the lighthouse instead of the true location. Vega was playing his final card. For a second, Elias froze, torn between the message from Anna and the authoritative lie from the police. He looked at his last soldier driving, then at the ocean on one side and the green hills on the other. He had to choose. Trust the institutional word of a corrupt captain, or trust the coded warning of a broke waitress who had already saved him once. He made his choice. "Ignore it," he growled. "Drive to the gardens and step on it." Back at the lighthouse, Anna was trapped on a narrow iron platform 100 feet above the ground. Two men were climbing the ladder after her. She had nowhere to go. The wind whipped her hair. She looked at the ocean, then at the men closing in. She thought of Miguel, safe because of the monster she was now trying to save. She closed her eyes, not in prayer but in resolve. If this was the price, she would pay it. Just as a hand reached for her ankle, a new sound cut through the wind, the thunderous roar of helicopter blades. Not a police helicopter. A sleek private black helicopter that descended toward the lighthouse platform like an avenging angel. The men on the ladder looked up, stunned. From the open side door, a figure leaned out, a rifle in his hands. It was Elias. He had commandeered the helicopter from a nearby tourist outfit at gunpoint, making a final, desperate gamble after all. The rifle barked once, twice. The men on the ladder fell. The helicopter hovered, skids touching the rusted platform. Elias reached out his hand. Anna, now, she didn't hesitate. She lunged, his strong hand closing around her wrist, pulling her into the shuddering aircraft. As they lifted away, leaving El Escorpion's furious men shouting below, Anna gasped, "The garden! It's the Botanical Gardens villa. Rosa is his sister." Elias's eyes met hers. There was no surprise, only grim confirmation. He nodded to the pilot, pointing inland. "There, and fly fast." As the helicopter banked away from the sea, heading toward the final showdown, Anna realized the truth. She was no longer a waitress or a pawn or even just a beneficiary. She was, for better or worse, part of the family, and the family was going to war. The helicopter didn't land at the Botanical Gardens. It touched down in a soccer field 2 blocks away. Elias knew the villa would have surface-to-air capabilities. The final approach would be on foot, through the lush, manicured grounds that served as El Escorpion's pampered fortress. As they ran, Anna kept pace, her waitress uniform torn, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She was here now, in the heart of the monster's den, not because she had to be, but because she chose to be. The smile had become a pact, sealed in gunfire and trust. The villa was a modernist jewel surrounded by a high wall, but Elias's last soldier, a man named Chai who had been with him since the hills of Badaraguado, knew a weakness. A maintenance tunnel for the garden's irrigation system ran under the western wall. It was cramped, dark, and smelled of damp earth and chlorine. They crawled single file, Elias leading, Anna in the middle, Chai covering the rear. They emerged inside a greenhouse, surrounded by orchids. The sound of a child's crying, muffled but unmistakable, drifted from the main house. Elias moved like a shadow, Anna following his silent gestures. They slipped from the greenhouse to a covered terrace. Through a floor-to-ceiling window, they saw the scene. Sophia sat on a large sofa, her face pale and streaked with tears, clutching a stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was a toddler. Rosa sat beside her, not restraining her, but speaking in a low, soothing voice. El Escorpion stood at a bar, pouring a drink, his back to them. He was on the phone. "The financial data is gone, but the damage is done," he was saying. "We consolidate now. The port shipment is still ours. Once Elias is dead, the rest will fall in line. Yes, the girl stays with me. She is family now." The word family spoken by that man ignited a cold fire in Elias's veins. He checked his weapon. 1 magazine left. Chai held up 2 fingers, indicating 2 guards patrolling the inner courtyard. They were outgunned and outnumbered. A direct assault was suicide. Elias looked at Anna, then at the window. He had one advantage, the element of shock. He pointed to a side door leading into the living room, then to Anna, and then mimed walking in calmly. He wanted her to go in first. Anna's eyes widened. He was asking her to be the shield, the distraction. She thought of Miguel, of the second chance she'd been given. She nodded. She took a deep breath, smoothed her hair, and walked around to the side door. She turned the handle. It was unlocked. The door opened with a soft click. All 3 heads in the room turned. Rosa's face froze in recognition and shock. El Escorpion slowly set down his phone. Sophia's cries hitched, her eyes wide. "Clara," the little girl whispered, using the false name Anna had been given. "Who are you?" El Escorpion demanded, his hand moving toward his waist. "I'm the woman who just broadcast your entire life to every criminal in Sinaloa," Anna said, her voice surprisingly steady. "Your accounts are being drained as we speak. Your men are choosing new bosses. You have nothing out there, but you have her in here." She looked at Sophia. "And that makes you the richest man in the world or the stupidest." It was a magnificent bluff, delivered with the tired defiance of someone who had nothing left to lose. It held El Escorpion's attention for 3 critical seconds. That was all Elias needed. The window behind them exploded inward. Elias came through in a shower of glass, rolling and coming up firing. The first shot took El Escorpion in the shoulder, spinning him around. The second shot was for Rosa, but it never came. Elias couldn't do it. She was holding Sofia. Chaos erupted. Chai engaged the 2 guards in the courtyard, the sound of automatic gunfire shattering the garden's peace. El Escorpion, wounded but furious, scrambled for his weapon. Anna didn't think. She lunged for Sofia, pulling the girl off the couch and shielding her with her own body behind a heavy armchair. Rosa screamed, torn between her brother and the child she'd helped raise. Elias advanced on El Escorpion. "It's over. Let her go and I'll let you live." "You let me live," El Escorpion spat, blood staining his shirt. "This is my home. You are the ghost here." He raised his pistol. But he never got the shot off. From the hallway, a new figure appeared. Captain Vega, flanked by 4 tactical police officers. "Federals, drop your weapons," Vega shouted, his voice echoing in the high-ceilinged room. He had followed the chaos, or perhaps Mateo's false tip had led him here after all. Elias froze, his weapon trained on El Escorpion, who now smiled through the pain. "You see, brother, even the law is on my side today." Vega's gaze swept the room, landing on Anna cowering with Sofia. "Señorita Flores, you are safe now. Step away from the girl." His tone was not comforting. It was an order. Anna held Sofia tighter. The little girl buried her face in Anna's neck. "Captain," Elias said, his voice low and dangerous. "This is a family matter. Leave." "All of Sinaloa is my family matter, Elias," Vega replied. "And today I take out the trash, both of you." He nodded to his men. "Take them. The girl goes into protective custody." This was Vega's plan all along. Not to save anyone, but to capture both rival leaders in one stroke, a career-making triumph. He would be a hero. Elias and El Escorpion would rot in the same supermax prison. The plaza would be leaderless, and a new, more controllable puppet would be installed. Elias saw the trap snap shut. He looked at Anna, at his daughter in her arms, then at the smug face of Captain Vega. He made a calculation. He lowered his weapon, letting it clatter to the marble floor. El Escorpion, seeing this, laughed bitterly and did the same. "Smart man," Vega said, smiling. "Cuff them." As 2 officers moved forward, Elias spoke, his words meant for Anna. "Remember the garden, Anna. The most beautiful roses have the sharpest thorns." It was a nonsense phrase. The officers grabbed his arms. But Anna heard it, and she understood. The garden asterisk. The botanical garden, thorns asterisk. She looked past Vega out the shattered window to the lush greenery, and she saw movement. Dozens of shadows detaching from the trees and hedges. Men in civilian clothes, armed with rifles, moving with silent purpose. Elias's men. Not his cartel soldiers, but his private guard, the ones loyal only to him and his blood. He hadn't come with just Chai. He had surrounded the garden first. The helicopter was the flashy distraction. This was the real force. As the federal officers snapped cuffs on Elias and El Escorpion, the room filled with a new sound. The precise, chilling clicks of dozens of weapons being armed. Elias's personal guard flooded in from every doorway from the terrace, their weapons trained on Vega and his 4 men. The captain whirled, his confidence evaporating. "What is this? You are surrounded by federal forces." "You are surrounded by my asterisk forces, Captain," Elias said calmly, his hands still behind his back. "And your backup is currently dealing with a series of coordinated traffic accidents on every road leading here. You are alone." Vega's face went ashen. He had been outmaneuvered. Elias nodded to his men. "Disarm them gently." The police were quickly relieved of their weapons. Elias turned to Vega. "You wanted a 2-for-1 deal. Here it is. You take him." He pointed to El Escorpion. "You have your trophy. You will report that I was killed in the crossfire. A body will be provided. In return, you will forget Ana Flores ever existed." You will ensure her and her brother's documents for Canada are processed by the end of the week, and you will never, ever look for me or my daughter again." Vega, defeated and knowing his own corruption would be exposed if he refused, could only nod. "And if I agree? Then you live and you get a promotion. If you break our deal, the file on a broadcast, the one you thought was just about him." Elias glanced at El Escorpion. "It had a second layer. All your private bank accounts, your agreements, are now in the hands of my lawyer. One word from me, and you are in a cell next to him." It was checkmate. Vega ordered his men to cuff El Escorpion and a sobbing Rosa. As they were led away, El Escorpion turned, his eyes locking with Elias's. "This isn't over." "For you," Elias said quietly, "it is." The room fell silent. The guards melted back into the garden. Only Elias, Anna, and Sofia remained in the wrecked villa. Sofia finally broke free from Anna and ran to her father, wrapping her small arms around his legs. He knelt, holding her, his eyes closed, tears finally streaming down his face. "Papa, you came," she whispered. "I will always come for you," he whispered back. He stood Sofia in his arms and faced Anna. She stood amidst the broken glass, looking like what she was, a waitress in the wrong place at the right time. "You saved my daughter twice," Elias said. "You saved me. Name your price, anything." Anna looked at him, then at the little girl clinging to him. "You already paid it. My brother is alive. We have a chance. That's enough." Elias shook his head. "It is not enough." He set Sofia down. "The money is yours always, but I offer you something else, a place, here with us. As her guardian, her teacher, as family. The world thinks Ana Flores is gone. You can be anyone you want to be." It was the same offer from the original story, but earned through fire. Anna looked at Sofia, who reached out a small hand. She thought of the empty room at the boarding house, the relentless grind of the diner, the fear that would always live in Miguel's eyes. Here was a different kind of fear, but also a profound kind of safety, a purpose. "I can't live this life," Anna said, gesturing at the weapons, the violence. "You won't," Elias promised. "We won't. The man I was died today, just as Captain Vega will report. The Empire can have its wars. I have what I need." He meant it. The obsession with power had been burned out of him in the crucible of nearly losing his child. He would withdraw, become a true ghost, his wealth and influence used only to protect this small circle. Anna took Sofia's hand. "Then we go get my brother first." A genuine smile, the first unburdened one, touched Elias's lips. "Of course." The aftermath unfolded with quiet efficiency. A burned body from the city morgue, provided by a paid official, was presented as Elias. News reports celebrated the death of a notorious capo and the capture of the rising star El Escorpion, hailing Captain Vega as a hero. Mateo, miraculously, was recovered from police custody, a prisoner exchange no one asked about. 1 week later, under a new name, Ana Flores boarded a private jet with Miguel, whose color had already improved. Sofia held her hand tightly. Elias, using new documents, followed as a separate passenger. Their destination was not Canada, but a secluded coastal estate in Chile, a place bought years before as a potential bolt hole. The final surprising detail emerged a month later. Anna, settling into her new role, was sorting through mail when she found a formal legal document. It was from a Swiss bank. Elias had not just paid for Miguel's treatment. He had purchased, in Anna's name, the entire struggling oncology wing of the public hospital in Mazatlan. It was being renamed the Miguel Flores Center. The attached note, in Elias's precise handwriting, read, "So no one else has to choose between a life and a debt. E." On the first Christmas Eve after their escape, they gathered on the terrace of the Chilean house. The Pacific Ocean stretched to the horizon. Miguel, stronger now, played with Sofia in the garden. Anna stood beside Elias, both holding cups of coffee. "Are you happy here?" Elias asked her, echoing his daughter's question from months before. Anna watched the children laugh. She thought of the diner, the cold fear, the weight of the world. She felt the sun on her face, the safety of the walls, the purpose in her days. "Yes," she said, and for the first time in her life, every part of her meant it. "I'm home." Elias nodded, looking at his daughter, alive and laughing, and at the woman whose simple smile had been the catalyst for his redemption. He had lost an empire. He had gained a family. The feared cartel leader had finally found someone to spend Christmas with, and it had changed everything. The war was over. The real life, fragile and precious, had just begun. The story of Elias and Anna is not a fairy tale. It is a map of a paradox, a study in the contradictions of the human heart. It asks a single, unsettling question: can the capacity for great evil and the potential for profound redemption exist within the same person? And if so, what is the catalyst that tips the scale? Their story suggests an answer as simple as it is revolutionary. Sometimes, all it takes is a moment of unrecognized grace. We may never know the full, verifiable truth of what happened in Sinaloa. The official records show the demise of a cartel leader and the arrest of his rival. The Miguel Flores Center in Mazatlan stands as a physical monument to an anonymous donation. If you visit that coastal estate in Chile, neighbors will speak of a quiet, protective man and a kind woman who homeschools 2 children. The pieces are there, but the full picture remains just out of focus, as all the best legends do. This story endures because it is not really about cartels or crime. It is about the silent prisons we all build for ourselves, prisons of fear, of pride, of past choices. Elias's was made of concrete and armed guards. Anna's was made of debt and despair. His was built by his own hands. Hers was built by circumstance. Yet the key to both locks was the same: a genuine connection, offered without expectation. The broader implication is both hopeful and terrifying. It suggests that our smallest actions, a smile, a moment of patience, an offer of help, carry an untold weight. We never know who is on the other side of that gesture or what battle they are losing. For Anna, it was a reflex of shared weariness. For Elias, it was a lifeline thrown into an abyss he didn't even know he was drowning in. He didn't fall in love with her that night. He fell in love with the humanity he saw reflected in her eyes, a humanity he thought he had sold long ago. So the lingering question this leaves us with isn't about their fate. It's about our own. In a world that often rewards hardness, that celebrates strength as the absence of feeling, what do we choose to project into the space between us? Do we build thicker walls, or do we, however rarely, dare to offer a bridge? The story of the feared cartel leader and the broke waitress argues that the bravest thing you can do is to be kind, especially when you have every reason not to be. Because you might not just be saving someone else. You might be saving a part of yourself you thought was already gone. If you found this journey into the shadows and the light compelling, there are more stories like it waiting. Stories of impossible choices, hidden truths, and the moments that change everything. For deeper dives into the narratives that shape our world, make sure to subscribe. Your next revelation is just one click away. Thanks for watching.